Hello there, Mirella.
Hi, Jamie.
This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here with Mirella Amato, and we are here in Trinity Bellwoods Park to speak about Mirella's book, which has just been launched, Beerology. Now, the name Beerology I've seen around for some time. I think it's a name that you trademarked a while back, is it not?
Absolutely, yeah. It's the name of my company. I trademarked it in 2007.
So I've been going through your book, having quite good fun with it. But
Yay.
Please tell us what actually inspired you to put a book together, and what is it that you feel differentiates your book, Beerology, from the hundreds and hundreds of beer books out there?
Well, this book for me is a natural extension of my work. So with Beerology since 2007, I have been doing guided tastings, talking to people about beer, trying to promote beer appreciation and encourage people to explore their own palate and find their own personal favorite beers, or maybe the right beer for any given occasion. And so this book for me is an opportunity to reach a broader audience, and I think that my work doing the guided tastings has really informed the content and tone of the book, in the sense that obviously when I'm doing guided tastings, I'm not talking at people, it's a dialogue. So just over the years, getting an idea of the kinds of questions that come up for someone who's maybe just approaching beer for the first time, is feeling a little overwhelmed, and it helped me inform how I break down the information and share it. So in terms of how this book is different, I think the focus of this book is really the consumer, as well as the beer, as well as the beer that's in front of you right now. So in terms of, for example, how I presented the styles in the various chapters, I'm sure you noticed it's by flavor,
Yes,
as opposed to by region. So the idea being, there's the refreshing brews chapter. So is refreshing beer your thing, or maybe are you in a mood for a refreshing beer right now? Well, here's a whole selection of beers, regardless of the region they're from, or whether they're ales or lagers, that will fit that bill. Of course, then I also explain whether they're ales or lagers and so forth. So the way it's presented. And the other thing that I feel differentiates this book is that it is, like all of my work, entirely brand neutral. So it really isn't about, these are the beers I think you should try, or here are beers to drink. That's it's just not a model that I'm a fan of when it comes to transmitting information. And there are many journalists out there whose job it is to just select beers for other people to try. But my work is really about getting people excited about beer and discovering their own palate and finding their own way to enjoy it. So that's why I've also included the games, as well as the cocktails, a bunch of different fun ways that you can enjoy beer. And in the style chapters, I'm sure you also noticed they're playful, but this beer might be good for such and such an occasion.
I did enjoy the way that you categorized the beers, all of those different beer styles. I thought that was a really interesting way to come at the world of beer. And you can see all of the different styles on the cover here. These are all the different chapters that you can see here.
Refreshing, captivating.
There's actually quite striking visual aspect to the book as well. How did that come about?
Well, the visual aspect, I have the design team really to thank for that. But the reason it came about, again, is part of my philosophy. I'm always brand neutral. And I, right off the top, said, I don't want any beer logos in the book.
Right, I see.
And it didn't seem like a tall order when I mentioned it. And then I started looking at beer books, and it's impossible to avoid logos, even if you're not talking about a specific beer and have that beer in the shot. I mean, taps have logos on them. You go to a bar, I have a couple of shots here that were taken in a bar. There's logos on the wall.
Your coasters have logos,
the
glassware.
Have logos. Yeah. The glassware has logos. So that was sort of the challenge that the design team was working with, and I think they did really an excellent job with it. And beyond that, my goal, just in terms of the tone of the book, which I think they captured beautifully, is that I wanted it to be welcoming. Because, I've studied beer extensively, and, I take it pretty seriously, but it's still beer. It's still just beer, and I'm worried that, it's going to start getting a little bit snooty around the edges, and there's no need for that. Drinking in the park.
So Mirella, Who do you see this book as being for? What type of demographic were you aiming for when you compiled it?
This book for me was really for anyone who is curious about beer and has noticed the selection but is maybe feeling a little overwhelmed and would like to dive in. That's why it's called Everything You Need to Know to Enjoy Beer even more. But it's also for people who have been appreciating beer for a little while and just want to wrap their brains around it in a different way. And it's interesting because I've been getting a lot of feedback from a range of people, and even some seasoned homebrewers who are saying that they found a few helpful tips in there.
Great.
And there are the charts in the back are very popular, and it's interesting to me because when I wrote the book, I had that specific demographic in mind. But the book comes from my experience with guided tastings. And when I'm guiding a tasting, invariably I have, a whole handful of people who are not beer drinkers. Maybe they're wine drinkers and they're coming to check it out, or they've come with someone and they're really starting out. And then in that same group, I'll have a few people who are really hardcore and know a lot. And so when I'm doing my talks, I always try to make sure that I'm not losing people who are just getting into beer while still providing fun little tidbits for those who really are quite advanced and are there to see if they can pick up something new and different. And I think inadvertently that's how the book ended up being as well. Actually, the beer and the other chapter I'm really happy with is the beer and food pairing chapter, which is one that I think even people who are hardcore into beer will find helpful, because I don't think there's really been another book that really breaks down beer and food pairing step by step. And I'd be curious to know what you think of it, because I took my inspiration from the wine world and how I broke it down.
I have to say, of all the chapters, that was one that I was particularly impressed with. I'm often asked to do kind of beer pairings, and I'm not... I can guess some of the generalizations there, but you were getting a little bit more specific, and I have to say that I enjoyed that chapter. Now, Mirella, thank you very much for joining us in the park for a guerrilla tasting session with Good Food Revolution, and we look forward to enjoying your book a little bit more, Beerology. Take care, Mirella.